Our world continues to change and push us in ways we have not been challenged before. On this show, we talk about these challenges, how to be aware of them, face them, and overcome them in your life. This is David Waldas, creator of the Aligned Living System.
And I'm Nick Musica, Aligned Living Coach. Welcome to the Aligned Living System podcast.
Hi, and welcome to the Aligned Living System podcast. This is David Waldas here with Nick Musica. Our topic today is really about greatness. It's really about creating what we want in the world from a place of allowing our gifts to show up and also not allowing what's out in the world that isn't serving us to end up in our inner world. And so it's about filters, really, and the relationship that people that are operating in their greatness, that are doing these massive things in the world or having these incredible experiences, the role that their own filtering system, energetic filtering system, mental filtering system has in that. And so I'll share a story real quick as we get going. So it's been really fun lately. I got the download for Aligned Living way back in 2016. And then about 2 to 3 years ago, I got a series of new downloads. And just in the last couple months, I've been getting a third wave of downloads for the Aligned Living System and doing some upgrades to it and some updates to it. And this piece around filters and around people and their greatness is a really cool aspect of it. And so let me just share where it came from. I've talked quite a bit about Bo Eason on here and how, Nick and I are both in his programs, and, I've gotten to know him really well and worked with him as well. And the moment that I saw him on stage, it was that experience that almost everybody talks about that sees him, and he'll talk about it too, that people just can't look away. Like, they're just captivated by him. And it has a lot to do with, the work that he's done with John Louis and the animal work. If you followed any of that, that may sound like what? We won't really get into that today. But what I've realized seeing his energetic field is so much of it has to do with the fact there's nothing between him and his audience. Like, he's done all the inner work to clear up this place. So when he's on stage, what you're getting is this pure essence of him just coming out. And it's captivating. It's animal-like, because as humans, we put all these layers of protection over ourselves. And when somebody doesn't do that, we can't look away. And so I'd been in that, and I'd been around Bo a bunch, and I've seen in myself and so many other people the transference that happens when you're around him. Like, you just start to pick up on what his energy is. It starts to show up in you, and you start to be able to do some of that. And so, Nick, if you want to join in at all on any of this too, I know that I kind of have a long introduction to this, but you've had a ton of experiences with Bo as well. So welcome, by the way, Nick. So we're 5 minutes into the podcast. Is that
right on time? Right on time. Yeah, I mean, I you were involved in the program before I was, and I remember going to one of the events in LA, Westlake, I guess. And we were walking outside, and I just happened to be next to Bo, and he said, "So how you finding this?" And I'm a guest at this point. I'm not in the program.
Yeah. You were my plus one, and everybody thought we were together.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, I didn't. Oh.
Oh, business partner. Oh, now I get it. Now I get it. And I remember him, he asked something like, "So, like, how's this landing for you?" And I said, "Yeah, you have a funny way of saying something, and it just lands. Like, me, I could have heard the same thing 10 different times from 10 different people the past 10 days. I don't think it would have landed like this. There's something happens when you say things."
Yeah.
And that was my personal experience. And there's an event in La Jolla happening in the next couple of days that maybe passed by the time this airs. But it happens every 6 months, I think.
Yeah, personal story power.
Yeah. And so when he gets up there, I mean, I think you used the phrase "can't look away," and that's his promise to the folks who join his program is people won't be able to look away from you when you get on a stage. And it is, and he even does this this exercise where he says, I in so many words, I dare you to look away. I dare you
Yeah.
to
You're
write
gonna you're
down
gonna
what's
forget. Yeah.
yeah, like I told you've seen it happen. I've told you what's happening. I'm telling you that I want you to not fall into what's happening, the experience of it, but I want you to like stay present as to what is happening. Um, and and as
And
soon
I
as he
guarantee
starts
you won't be able
talking,
to. Yeah.
yeah, it's a dare. It's like try to take this from like an intellectual perspective versus an emotional
Yeah. For
impact.
being in the story, being captivated and
That's
forgetting where
right.
you are and forgetting what's
Yeah.
going on. Yeah.
Yeah, and like Mom, I have my pen ready, right, and my notebook, right? I'm like, challenge on. And then like, I just don't give a shit. Like I don't want to write anything down. I really do want to be in it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I
So
just don't, I
good.
have
So good.
no interest in writing it down, what you're doing. I
Yeah.
just want
Yeah.
to experience it.
Yeah. And that piece too is the idea that there's nothing between him and the audience, right? And so there's
Yeah.
zero filter. And so being around him a bunch and getting to know him really well, like another saying he has is when I put pen to paper, something happens. And so he has this
Mm,
ability to when he writes something out, and it's fun working with him now, because I'll watch him write stuff, and I'll see the energy just flow through him onto the paper, and I'm like, shit, that's gonna happen now. That idea he just got, it's happening. Like it just got, that was the genesis of it. It just launched, and
mm.
like his ability to just let it flow out of him, beautiful, right? And so you know so being in his energy, like I didn't quite get it, other than that this guy has a real gift, right? That he has this ability. And then, not too long ago, I was seeing this speaker trainer who was offering something that I was really fascinated by that fits right in with the line living around training coaches to do the work that I do, that I already do, but
Hmm.
taking that to a bigger scale and getting this work out there. And when she was speaking, it kind of put me into a little bit of an energetic tailspin. I was like, what is going on? Like, it's so weird to me because I loved what she was saying, but I was finding my brain get kind of wompy, like getting kind of spun out. And I'm like, this is weird because I'm usually like, it just doesn't happen to me anymore. And then, I talked to her one to one on a phone call, and same thing. There was like a couple days where I was just kind of in this sense of overwhelm. And I realized what was happening is that she doesn't have any filters around abundance. Like she can allow massive abundance and has to flow into her life and to stick around. And feeling that freedom, like that influx, like it was so overwhelming for me. And once I knew that, no, I've been around her since and had some great conversations with her. And it doesn't spin me out anymore because I realize what's happening. In fact, it feels amazing to be around because what an incredible gift to have to allow things to happen for you at a massive level, because that means a massive impact. That means that you're able to really, get whatever it is that's important to you out into the world, and she does. Um, and so that
So
was,
do you
go
have a
ahead.
sense of how she manifests? Because you talked about how, Bo does it. Like he sees
Hmm.
it, feels it.
Hmm.
I may be getting some of this wrong, but then writes it down. And
Hmm.
once it's written down, it sort of starts to take on a life of its own.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly, other than that seeing it in her field, is that there's non-resistance. And when we think about our own field, depending on how aware we are of it, there's a sense of tightening up a little bit, a sense of like, oh, can I be that big? Can I allow that? I'm not thinking of $1 million, I'm thinking of $100 million. How does that kind of hit your field? And most of us go, oh shit, like, and I think part of that is we know what is required of us. Like if we play that big, that asks something from us huge. That exposes us in a massive way. And are we willing to do that? And maybe we don't know that's what's happening, but there's protectors we put in place. There's limiting beliefs. There's all these things that we have that keep us from, showing up that big and receiving that much and offering that much, because it's just a hugeness to it. And when I look at her field, like it's like she's up for the challenge. And, like anybody, I'm sure it's not easy to step into that role, and it requires a massive amount. Yet there's a sense of, yeah, this is what I'm doing. And not a sense of like, oh shit, not looking for the exit, not looking for another way out of it, or even like, how do I do this, but on a smaller scale? It's
Yeah.
like, if I'm gonna do it, I'm just doing it like full out.
Yeah.
Um, It's
Yeah.
like full throttle.
Yeah. And like yeah, I mean a couple things show up. One is like I forget the name of the author. Is it Gay Hendricks, The Big Leap?
Yeah, 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 exactly. Gay Hendricks.
Yeah. And he basically talks about like when someone has an aspirational goal, they get closer to it and then they just sort of fuck it up. Right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, the
they
upper limit,
intentionally
right?
yeah, they
Yeah,
intentionally pull something out over here and make it an obstacle and trip
yeah,
over it
yeah,
and don't get over the finish line.
yeah.
Um,
They're they just can't handle it being that good or that big, or that vision of themselves. Like they
right.
no matter how much it's been a dream, they get in the way of it, and at the last minute, pull
Yeah.
the rug out. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And we do that energetically. We just don't allow it to manifest. We go, God, I keep trying. I'm working so hard towards this and it won't happen. But there's a whole part of us at the same time that's working against it energetically. That's going, please don't work. Please don't work. I don't know if I'm really ready for this. And then it doesn't work. And we go, shit, like I've worked my ass off. Why isn't this happening? And there's this whole other part of us is going, because I'm going to make sure that I don't put us in the situation that is terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah. And you could invite it in without even knowing you're inviting it in.
Mm-hmm. And we do, right? We don't do it on purpose. We don't go, I'm saying I want this, but I really don't. That's not a conscious thought. It's like, God, I'm working
Yeah.
towards this, but it doesn't seem to be happening. And as we tap into that, and I've heard it in myself before of like, oh, I think it's happening. I hear a voice in the back of my head go, no, no, not now, not now. I'm like, who the hell's that? And what are you doing? Oh shit, that's me too, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what so now what?
Yeah. Well, so it's interesting. A couple more experiences. So
Yeah.
over last week I was in Denver for the Zenergy Fest, which is this work that Harry Massey is doing with energy medicine, it was unbelievable. That's a whole nother
Mm.
episode of its own. And I've talked a bit about Dr. Greg Eckel too. I was at his center in up in Park City, and he was part of it. He was the MC, and so being in that circle, like just amazing things are happening. But again, a whole nother episode on what's happening with energy medicine. It's mind blowing, and it's definitely the wave of the future. And we've known that for a long time, but it's actually here. Is what I'll say about that for right now. Um, but Dave Asprey was one of the speakers there, and it was really interesting to hear him talk. He's one of those you love him or hate him type guys, right? Where he's just very polarizing. He's very full of himself. Kind of hedonistic type guy too, where he's just throws it out there and gets a kick out of that. And so there's like an after party afterwards, and maybe there's like 20 of us there. And so it was cool to get a chance to talk to some, really amazing people that were the presenters. And I was sitting there, and Dave came over and sat next to me. We got in this conversation around about energy and all that I do, and it's very much his world as well. And again, it hit me being in his field. There's no filters. There's nothing in the way of him and his self-expression. Like it just goes out. He gets a big kick out of being disruptive. He gets a big kick out of, just saying whatever it is and doing whatever wants to come out of him is what comes out of him. And it's so free. And there's just nothing in the way of it. He's not going like, oh, how's this going to land for people? It's just like, it's in me, it's out of me. And realizing like, how does he have such a massive impact? How does he get so many people to respond to what he has to say? And it's like that, it's a massive energy that just comes through him and out of him. And a lot of us have a massive energy, but we don't let it out in the same way. It comes through us and we go filter, filter, filter. How do I want to say it? Let me just, oh, now I can let some of it out. Poof, but his just comes out. And I had a blast talking to him. Um, and I learned so much in that, I don't know, 45 minutes or however long we were talking. And it again is the same thing. There's nothing between me and what's coming out of me and the world from that perspective, from in to the out. Um, the very next day, my girlfriend and I went to the Denver Art Museum, and we're standing in front of these Monets, and it was, I've stood in front of those same paintings before and hadn't had this experience. Like, it's beautiful, incredible. Look at all the, work with the light and all of that. But we're standing there, and we both just get these waves of like emotions and energy, and so we're standing in front of it, and I get this message that says, there was nothing between Monet and his brush and the paint and the canvas. It just came through him. And so again, his filter was non-existent for his expression of light onto the canvas, for paint onto the canvas, for his vision onto the canvas. And that's what we're feeling when we're standing in front of it, is this just delivering of, I mean, it's our divine channel and we all have
It's
it,
of
but we all
himself.
block it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was really
Yeah.
giving of himself, and it just happened
Purity.
to land up on that canvas.
Yeah, yeah. And so that purity when it comes through us, and it's fine to think like, like Dave Asprey was often saying, like stuff that's just like sexual or, like goofy or joking around or, that there's purity to that, right? And there is though, because it's just like the sense of like, it's what's going on in him and it's coming out and it's coming through in a way that's not, he's not trying to direct it. It's just, um, uh, onto the canvas of whoever's in front of him.
hmm hmm Yeah, I mean, those are huge things. I mean, what I'm hearing is uh, individuals operating systems who are free to express themselves in the context that we're talking about. I can
Hmm.
imagine there's some other places where they may not show up as
Hmm.
freely. That's just my
Hmm.
guess.
Yeah.
We all have our own things that we're working through. But in those moments, in those environments, these people are showing up as 100% their true selves, and they're
Hmm.
comfortable in that, and therefore they're able to give from that place, and that's
Hmm.
received because of
Yeah,
the purity of how it's delivered.
absolutely. And we're always trying to protect people from us, right? Like, how do I need to say this? How does this come out to make it digestible?
Hmm
Or protect
hmm
ourselves because we don't want to be exposed in some
hmm
way that makes us look like, or anything other than how we want to look versus just this purity coming out. And it's interesting, like that innocence of that. And, like I keep going back to Dave, like there's nothing innocent about him, yet the way that he expresses is innocent because it's just purity coming through, even if it's perverse purity, right? Like it's such a weird thing to wrap your head around, but it's unfiltered. And it's crazy exciting to think that we can do that. And so what I saw was this ability to energetically recognize those filters and to energetically remove them, much like some of the other exercises we do with the line living system. And so we plugged that in. And the other side to this too is, you know, where is it that we don't have filters based on our past experiences or our traumas or whatever, because there's often places where we don't have filters for what we allow in and what we allow out that we should. And so looking at the filters that we have that don't allow stuff out, a lot of times it's our greatest gifts that we don't allow out, uh, and we need to remove those. But what is it that we are allowing out that we shouldn't? And it's usually things like cynicism, it's things like frustration, victimhood, all these like upsetness with the world. It's blame, all these things that come out of us. And when we put the filters in place that don't allow them to come out of us, it locks us inside of ourselves with them. And when we get to just vent them out into the world, we don't deal with them. We just go, well, that's how the world is. That's how they are. That's how this is. That's because of that. And it just comes out of us. And there's no interaction with ourselves. There's no pushback. But when we hold it inside of ourselves and create a filter that says, I'm not going to allow that to go into the world, I'm not going to allow my story of victimhood to leave my body anymore, it forces us to be contained with it and to sort through that and see our own bullshit and to go, God, like there's actually empowerment here in this story of victimhood. And instead of, me always getting vented and losing my momentum or losing the energy of what it is I want to create, when I contain that and don't let that leave me, all of a sudden I have to sort through that story. And we use things like the aligned perspective technique, if you're familiar with that, to look at it in a way where all of a sudden we see it differently. And because we're contained with it, we get the pushback, we find a greater truth, and we create a lot more resolution with it. And that resolution creates more freedom, more expansiveness inside of ourselves, and a way that we express ourselves in a cleaner, more pure way. Because if we're taking the filters off of self-expression, and we've been expressing like we have to clean up the stuff that's inside of us because we can't go, I'm in full expression and then puke all over everybody about our unresolved shit. Like it just doesn't work, other than creating more unresolved shit. And so it's really fascinating how these work together. Um, and then uh, the fourth part of that too is the idea of, what are we allowing into our field that we shouldn't? And
Mm.
where's our filter there? And
Hmm.
same kind of thing too. Like we end up picking up on all kinds of stuff that's just not relevant to us, that disrupts us. Um, and there's usually those are based on traumas. Usually those are based on experiences we've lived in the past where we had to keep ourselves safe in some way. So we were always being aware of stuff that wasn't positive or that was challenging or that was threatening. And so we seek that in the world, and our filters are a little, they're not serving us because there's a huge opening to anything that feels off in the world all of a sudden shows up in here. And so cleaning up those filters, and it's pretty remarkable. I love it. Like I said, this is the third version of um, kind of updates and edits to the Align Living System, and so powerful and so timely, so
Yeah, super
empowering.
cool.
Yeah.
Super cool. Yeah. So another tool folks can use to analyze their life and operate through it.
Yeah, yeah, and to create massive shifts and changes.
Yeah.
With that's what I say. There's a lot of this is micro adjustments that create, you know,
Mm.
big outcomes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there's that meme or whatever, maybe lesson that goes around where 1% change all year long. Like it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
seem like a lot, but at the end of the year, that
Mm-hmm.
1% adds up, it compounds.
Yeah, yeah, or the end of the day, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Or
There's
even
that
the end
little
of the day.
shift in sealing off something that we've been way open to, that isn't serving us. When we close off to that, all of a sudden, what does that do to our inner world? What does that do to what we're thinking about? What does that do to how much energy we feel have to put towards something versus, like, we all know that feeling of having the wind knocked out of our sail by a thought, by somebody else's energy coming in, somebody else's ideas, somebody else's statement.
It's
And
true.
if that doesn't get through, like, we get to hold the wind in our sail. And that's the essence of it, is we're constantly getting knocked off course by poor filtering.
Yeah. 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 Great. Great.
Yeah. And of course we are, right? Because that is the experience of being when we live in a world where we all experience trauma at some level. And then it becomes a part of our field, it becomes part of our filtering system. And we need to clean that up, or else, it's so hard to move past things.
Yeah. Yeah. So going back to the tools, how can folks get started with all this?
Yeah, I mean, like we say, we always, in the show notes, there's the free video class, which, free is good, right? You can
Hmm.
get in there and check it out. But you can also, if you go on the webpage, it's davidwaldas.com, a single discounted one-to-one session with me there, where, I give people an opportunity to see what it's like to work with me, and to see how this is a fit. But there's also group stuff on there. There's 10-week programs for groups, 10-week programs for one-to-one. And that's really where you start to get into the deeper stuff. But there's free stuff to get a feel for it. And so,
Yeah.
that's the idea, is these tools are super powerful, and they work. And we've seen massive results, and you can see the testimonials on there from lots of people talking about what's shifted in their life. And so that is the mission, to get this out there into people's hands. That's why we're doing this podcast. That's why we're talking about all these
Mm.
concepts. That's why I train other coaches to do this as well, because it's something that, once it's these tools in our hands, life is very different. I think I've
Yeah.
said that
Yeah.
a
So
few
so
times.
David Waldas, WALDS.com.
DAS, yeah.
Did I thought I said DAS. I slurred the A,
Maybe
didn't
so.
I?
I
I
don't, I'm like, do you
slurred
know how
the
to spell my
A.
name?
I slurred it. DAS.
Maybe you did. Maybe you did. But it's in the show notes too, which is always an easy way to
All right.
look it
All right. Yeah, the notes don't slur. I may have slurred.
up. Yeah, so really interesting conversation, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that, because this is pretty new. The last few months, it's been coming in, been playing with it in my own field, playing it with clients in their field, and just seeing some really immediate shifts and changes, because our filtration system is everything. And there's some really interesting work out there about cognitive bias too, right?
Mm.
And that's
Hmm.
really what we're talking about, is that based on our past, we have a cognitive bias. We have a selection system that's always scanning our environment and picking up what feels important to us, what feels relevant. It's funny. A few months ago, I was with my daughter. She was looking at getting a new vehicle, and the salesperson, like, we went by a car that was the same car we were driving. I go, oh, look, there's another Bronco. And the salesperson goes, it's funny how I hear this from everybody when they come in, that when they start thinking about buying a car, they see it everywhere. And it's like, I'm like, because it's our cognitive bias, it's our filtering
Mm-hmm.
system. How many
Mm-hmm.
Ford Broncos did you drive by thinking about buying one? Now I see every single one I drive by.
Mm-hmm.
Before it was just a blur going by.
Mm-hmm.
And so what are our blurs and what is it that we're picking up on? And that's
Mm-hmm.
happening at a energetic level too. And it steers our thinking. It's does our sail hold wind or does it get knocked out of it? Do we show up in this full force of expression and impact, or does it get diminished? Does it get knocked down? And when we can clean that up, holy shit. And again, we usually clean up in scales. We don't go like, oh, today I'm Monet again. No, like that's great because I go like, well, I'm a whole lot closer. I'm a whole lot
Mm.
more self-expressed. There's a whole lot more room inside me now. Pretty exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. Well, great conversation. I'm sure we'll touch on this again.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Much more.
yeah, absolutely. Well, check out the website and take advantage of the free offerings there. And if you're interested, we go pretty deep with it all, and it changes things in miraculous, seemingly miraculous ways, but it's not miraculous. It's just energetic structure. Awesome. Well, have a great week, everyone. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed listening to today's podcast. And if you did, please subscribe so you can catch the next episode. If you want to learn more about the Aligned Living System and how it could support you in your life, check out davidwaldas.com.